Hi, we're on to lesson 3 of module 1. You have learned so much already. You need to give yourself a pat on the back, or better yet, schedule a massage. Because between the scaffolds, the videos, the activities, and the formative assessment, you have been assimilating a huge amount of information. I really want to congratulate you on dedicating yourself to these really important elements to plan a thriving learning environment. You probably feel more confident just with the 3 techniques you learned in the past lesson, reducing some of the most common emotional triggers that will in the end result in creating powerfully strong phenomenon-based learning projects. Yay. We're a third of the way through, so let's look at 3 more emotional triggers that could potentially weaken the affective domain in your classroom. But with anticipating them, you'll strengthen that domain instead. Just as in the last lesson, let's do a quick review of the concepts from the last session so that you really remember how powerful this quick and valuable practice is in getting yourself oriented. And later you remember this so that your students will benefit from the same dynamic. Ready? Think you've got this? I think the answer is a big yes. Which are the 3 triggers we explored in the last lesson? If you're saying to yourself, anxiety, low self-confidence, and dissatisfaction, your neurons are firing today. What can we do to mitigate the effects of anxiety? If you're saying, share and co-create objectives and use images whenever possible so that we appeal to visual learners' needs, then your neurons are not just firing, you're on fire. As for the second trigger, how can we strengthen the affective domain when students are frustrated or dissatisfied? If you're saying to yourself, well, as one of the reasons for this is that assessments are not clearly outlined and agreed upon between the students and me, the teacher, then all we need to do is clearly outline the assessment and have a co-agreement with the students, one that is fair according to the lessons leading up to that assessment, then you have what we call a photographic memory, because that's exactly how we explained it and wrote it in the transcript in the last lesson. And the third trigger, anticipating low self-confidence and plan ways of normalizing this type of trigger. If you're saying to yourself, well, often students with low self-confidence don't like to make mistakes because their emotions run very high when that happens, especially if their classmates realize it. So we celebrate mistakes and show how they're actually very helpful in the learning process. Then you have hit the ball out of the park. Though, if that's a cultural anomaly for you, let's just say you have an incredible memory. Well done, you. You've probably realized by now how much the scaffolding activities help. So please go to the appropriate folder, open the scaffolding activity for lesson 3, and get to know the key concepts that you're going to see in this lesson. I'll be right here waiting for you when you come back. Have you been beginning your sessions with objectives? What are some of the experience you've been having? Please email me and let me know how your students have reacted in the face of participating in the objectives of the session, or share them in our weekly community meetings. The objective for this lesson is to identify 3 more triggers that may come up for your students. If we anticipate them, we can put tools in place to mitigate them. In the last lesson, we looked at the first 3. Now let's examine 3 more. So in this lesson, we're going to look at what we can do when our students display confusion, impatience, and stubbornness. You ready? So as we said, we're into the second third of the 9 most common triggers students display that can weaken the affective domain. Aren't you just squirming with how knowledgeable you feel? Let's be even more proactive. One cognitive element that blocks learning and slams the tool booth arm down in the limbic system is confusion. Confusion can be virtually anything that's perplexing for a student. And remember, it may affect one, but not all of them, or maybe half, but not the other half. Whatever quantity of students, we need to plan something to help them gain clarity, right? It's like when you get as many coworkers together as possible to complain about something in your work environment because you think that if you're the only one bothered, then it's not important. You have to approach it with a lot of people. No, if one student's confused, they probably have a valid reason. And so it's our responsibility, and really, it's part of the fun of the job to find a way to make the learning more transparent so that we've taken care of at least one element in the classroom, clarity. And then we only have 1.5 million other factors in the school day to juggle. Now, their confusion could be triggered by something as simple as a changing of seats by order of the teacher, or the cancellation of a special event for reasons the students weren't consulted about, or the treatment of one student that's different from that of another by administration. These can trigger students to withdraw within themselves and not be emotionally available to learning on any level. So what can we do? Well, one really powerful way of evading confusion is by having class meetings, from the very youngest learners to the oldest. There are incredible books that give reasons to include class meetings, beginning with preschoolers, and concrete ways to create them. And I'll put those resources in the folder in this lesson. And you'll also find PDFs that present some of the key factors for these class meetings in the same folder. But here's a summary, all right? Class meetings promote collaboration, empowerment, and a sense of value of all the students. Class meetings also augment the skills we're promoting in the phenomenon-based learning projects. And so in this way, we're treating our students as co-creators in their learning environment, and this goes deep into their psyche. Remember, one of the really special factors of phenomenon-based learning projects is that they're not just about the content, they're about the process, and the process is exactly why you're studying this module. Because to get the full benefit of a phenomenon-based learning project, we need a safe learning environment, a strong affective domain in which our students can collaborate, process, learn. The objectives of a class meeting are just what you see here: to create an environment in which students develop communication skills, a focus on solutions, not problems, a sense of belonging and contribution, empowerment, acquisition of social skills, judgment, which eventually leads to wisdom. And one of the ancillary benefits is that class meetings also promote language development of either the classroom or the majority languages. More specifically, you're going to find that as a result of regular class meetings, from preschool to university and onwards, in which everyone is involved in the decisions, even in very small degrees, you'll have more engagement, more participation, and more learning. Even our youngest learners can come up with remarkably creative ways to solve problems when given the opportunity. And moreover, the empathy and compassion that are developed within these class meetings, what I dare say are sacred spaces, because that really is what you're going to find you're creating. It's going to be expansive and have long-term effects. So you can address changes through questions, explore reasons why, what's behind the change in routines, for instance, ask them for ideas on different options. But essentially, you want to make sure that they give compliments to each other and they appreciate each other. They show that appreciation, that the students are empowered to help each other, and that they solve problems that affect the whole group. And also, they can literally plan future activities. We can include a fifth element, which is that class meetings inherently create a safe place to learn vocabulary, which students really need to express their emotions. We need to honor and encourage them to express their feelings, especially as we're dedicating this time to finding ways of creating a strong affective domain. So this is a perfect time for a short break. Go ahead and open the PDFs in the folder called Class Meetings, and you can read the examples of how you can structure your class meetings. Find some possible topics you can include in your agendas, possible comments your students might give you, and then possible responses you can give them. That was really helpful to me, actually. Go ahead and take 5 minutes to write up a plan for your first class meeting. You may want to include when it will be each week or each month, what day, what time, who will lead it, you or your students, what the guidelines will be, who will choose the topics, and how students can submit topics they'd like to include in the agenda. And when you're finished, we'll continue with part 2 of lesson 3, and see you soon.